Used to be like the same way. I don't know.
This Ashurus, which reigned from India to Ethiopia, over 107 and 20 provinces.
Ahasuerus' name it's in the biblical name of his Ahasuerus. A lot of people in modern day times understands his name to be Xerxes. All right, go ahead.
Verse 2, that in those days when King Ahasuerus sat on the throne of the kingdom, which was Shushan, the palace. Verse 3, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and the princes of the provinces being before him. Verse 4, when he showed the riches of his glory kingdom and the honor of excellence, majesty, many days, even 180 days. Verse 5, and when these days,
180 days is how many days?
180.
180 days is correct. Give them a hand. All right. The celebration lasted for how long?
180 days.
180 days, 180 days. Read on.
Verse 5, and when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan the palace, both unto great and small, 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace.
Okay, now what we're speaking on right now is not an Israelite king. All right, this is a heathen king named Ahasuerus. Okay, this is just giving you a little bit of background of his culture and a more or less of a celebration or a shindig that he does every year traditionally. Okay, all right, read on.
Verse 6, where were white, green, and blue hangings fastened with cords of fine linen and purple to silver rings and pillars of marble.
Meaning that this was this is a beautiful, excellent. Just imagine something that's just really like an extravagant party, an extravagant get together. You know what I'm saying? And there's just lined with beautiful gold and purple and yellow, decorations all over the damn place, man. Right. All right. So let's just imagine that, right? Keep reading.
Fine linen and purple, silver rings and pillars of marble. The beds were of gold and silver upon a pavement of red and blue and white and black marble. Verse 7, and they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse from one another, and the royal wine in abundance, according to the state of the king. Right.
So this is so the generosity of this king was that he was giving all of his loyal people, he was giving them this beautiful party, this beautiful gathering, and he offered wine and gold goblets or cups and all of that type of stuff, man. Read on.
Let's see. Okay. Verse 8, and the drinking was according to the law. None did compel. There was
no limits, in other words, put on the drinking. So you can drink it as much as you want. Go ahead.
For so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house that they should do according to every man's pleasure.
Give whatever they want. Whatever anybody wants or asks for, his officials were to give it to him.
Right.
No matter how much alcohol, no matter how many prostitutes or whatever kind of stuff he had at that party, they was able to have access to whatever they want because that was the order, that was the decree by Ahasuerus. Go ahead.
Verse 9, and Vashti, the queen, made a feast for the women in the royal house.
And Vashti was his wife, all right, was his queen, all right, and she had a specific banquet that she made for all of the women in the royal palace, right? Under King Xerxes or King Ahasuerus. All right, read on.
Women in the royal house, which belonged to the king Ahasuerus. On the 10th day, verse 10. On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Harbana, Bigtha, and Abatha, Zethar, and Carcass, the 7 chamberlains that serve in the presence of Ashurus the king. Verse 11, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to show the people and the princes her beauty, for she was fair to look upon.
Right.
To look on.
So these men that he named, these are eunuchs. These are men that serve him. And his order for them was to go grab my wife, because I want to show my wife off to everybody. Right? Read on.
But 12. But the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains.
But she didn't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? Because she knew that that's what he wanted. He just wanted to show her off, and she didn't want to do that. Read on.
Therefore was the king very wroth.
This made him angry. This made King Ahasuerus angry because his woman did not obey him. Read on.
And his anger burned in him. Verse 13. Then the king said to the wise men, which knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew law and judgment. Verse 14.
Sorry, read that one more time.
Verse 13. Then the king said to the wise men, which knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew law and judgment.
So in other words, he went and consulted with his advisors, right? His advisors are the people who knows the law. They know the customs and the traditions inside of Persia, right? So he consulted with them. Read on.
Verse 14. And the next unto him was Koshina, Shethar, at Matha, Tarshish, Meres, Marcina, and Mehucan.
All right.
7 princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face, and which sat the first in the kingdom.
Right. They had the highest positions under Ahasuerus, and they regularly consulted with Ahasuerus. All right, on all matters. Read on.
Verse 15. What shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to the law?
So he wants to know, what shall we do to her for her disobedience? Read on.
Vashti according to the law, because she hath not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains. Right.
So he want to know what penalty can we put on her for her being disobedient and not coming as I requested. This is who he's talking to, his advisors of the law. He wants to find out if there's a way that he could punish her. Right? Read on.
Verse 16. And Mehucan answered before the king and the princes, Vashti the queen have not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes, to all the people that are in the provinces of the king Ahasuerus.
So then now one of his advisors said, you're not the only one that she has offended, but she's offended not only you, but all of the princes or the nobles, but everybody in the city, everybody in the land. Read on.
Verse 17. For this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands.
Read it again.
For this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands.
So his fear was that because of her disobedience to him, that this was going to be a trend that was going to pass around throughout the land, wherein women were going to start being disobedient or not hearkening to their husbands. So that was his issue with that. Read on.
The husband said, in their eyes, when it shall be reported, the king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought.
We got some yayan. Hey, Thawad, if I could get some, please. Go ahead.
The king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. Likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes which have heard of the deed of the queen, thus shall these arise too much contempt and wrath.
So in other words, they're going to hear this because what happens usually when something like that happens, the gossiping starts going in the land. Everybody hears about it. Wait, what you mean? What you mean? Queen Vashti, what do you mean she ain't doing her husband say? What you mean? Oh, she's standing up, ain't she? They gonna start hearing that, and they're gonna start doing. It's gonna go around, and then they're gonna start doing it to their husbands, and it's gonna become a problem.
Right.
You all right, young man? Yeah. So, and that's what his issue was with it. Keep reading.
Verse 19. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she.
Read that one more time, because this is what he wants to happen to her. Read it again, Salaki.
Verse 19. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before the king Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she.
So he's going to banish her from her. He wants to banish her from his presence, because in this time period, you were only, when you were requested by the king, you were to go, and it was a dishonor or disrespect if you didn't show up, because you also had to get permission to see King Xerxes or King Ahasuerus. And when you read on, you'll find out that you were forbidden to even go and see him unless he requested you. You understand? And if you went and saw him without being requested, then what would happen? Anybody know? Anybody remember? What happened?
If he didn't put his scepter out, he'd cut your head off.
Then you'll die. You'll be put to death. Right? Read on.
Verse 20. And when the king decree which shall be published throughout all his empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor, both to great and small. Verse 21. And the saying pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Memucan. So
in other words, when this decree goes out, the opposite would happen. Instead of the women becoming rebellious to their husbands, the women would respect their husbands, because otherwise they would receive the same treatment that the king put on Vashti. Go ahead,
It's like, so that's so heavy with this scripture, because it shows you what happens if you let a rebellious woman come upon your people. She'll start to go ahead and, make other women become rebellious. That's like grandmama or the big mama who tell her, girl, he ain't doing that anyway. You might as well leave him alone. And now we have that amongst our generation, and like people like to call it a generational curse with the child support.
No, I agree. Give him a hand, and then also to add to that, because he's so right. When you look at the media today, and you see a lot of the female influence or the women entertainers, and they teach such a rebelliousness inside of their songs and in their culture. You understand? And what happens? All of the poor sisters down here, they start following those things, right? They sit up there and they say, well, forget him. You don't need him. Be more independent. While they living the best life up there, but your poor behind ain't got no man, because you listening to her. You understand? You following that tradition, right? You following that behavior, and that's what he didn't want to happen, and he knew that in order for them to see, in order for them to not misbehave in that way, he had to put out a decree. Or he had to do this thing or change his law in order to be able to show them that there is consequences for doing that. All right, keep reading, Knox.
Verse 22. For he sent letters into all the king's provinces, and to every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house.
Right. Now, this is a time period, of course, this is like America. It's a melting pot of different nations inside of this area, except that it was ran by the Persian Empire. It was ran by Ahasuerus. And so in every language, he sent a letter out in every language, whatever language was in that time period, whether it was Hebrew or Chinese or whatever language that was in that time period. It was written, you understand, so that they could understand that every man should be the ruler in his household. All right, read on.
Bear rule in his own house, and that it should be published according to the language of every people.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 2, Esther. After these things, when the wrath of King Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vashti, and when she had done, and what she had done.
So when his anger subsided, meaning when he was done being angry, when he was done being upset, when he was out of his feelings about the situation, he remembered that situation that happened with his queen or his rib. Read on.
And what she had done,
Mm-hmm.
and what was decreed against her.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 2. Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, let there be fair young virgins sought for the king.
So now his advisors say, let's go find you a fair young woman, a beautiful woman. We'll find you some more women out there.
Verse 3. And let the king appoint officers in all provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins unto Shushan the palace,
Mm-hmm.
to the house of the women, unto the custody of Heji, the king's chamberlain,
Mm-hmm.
keeper of women,
Mm-hmm.
and let their things be purification, and let their things for purifications be given them.
Mm-hmm. All right. So he's sending these people. He's going to send out his people to go out and search for beautiful women all throughout the land. Read on. Very simple.
Verse 4. And let the maiden which pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti.
Mm.
And the thing pleased the king, and he did so. Verse 5. Now in Shushan the palace there was a certain Jew, whose name was Mordecai,
Okay.
the son of Jair,
Mm-hmm.
the son of Shamael.
Now we're getting into our people, right? Now we're getting into our people, right? We done talking about this for a while. We done talking about this heathen. We're gonna start talking about our people, right?
Right.
All right. So we're talking about Mordecai, the son of Jair, right? And what tribe was he from?
The son of Kish, a Benjamite.
A Benjamite, right? Who are the Benjamites today? The Jamaicans, the Trinidadians, all of the West Indians, right? All right. Read on.
Verse 6. Who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away in Jeconiah, the king of Judah,
Mm-hmm.
whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away.
Mm-hmm.
Says 7. He brought up to Hadassah, that is Esther,
Mm-hmm.
his uncle, daughter, for she had neither father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful.
Right. This woman, Esther, was a beautiful woman. This was Mordecai's cousin, right? That he was keeping watch over. Now, to give you a little bit of understanding of Esther's beauty, just imagine who would be considered the most beautiful woman in this time period. That would be Esther. She would be like unto Esther. Some people would say, well, back in the day they used to say Halle Berry. Today they say Beyonce. You know what I'm saying? Just think about how beautiful this woman is in this scripture. You know what I'm saying? Esther, and she was that beautiful. She was like top of the line, right? And so she was a very fair woman. Keep reading on.
His uncle's daughter,
Uh-huh.
for she had neither father nor mother.
Right.
And the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter.
Mm-hmm. So he basically raised her up, right? Read on.
Verse 8. So it came to pass, when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together unto Shushan the palace, to the custody of Hegai, that Esther was brought also unto the king's house,
Mm-hmm.
to the custody of Hegai,
Mm-hmm.
keeper of women.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 9.
So in other words, now Esther was sought among all of the other women who were going to Haggai which is one of Ahasuerus's agents or people that he had to go and search for these women, right? So now she's in that mix, right? And go ahead, read on.
Verse 9. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him.
Right. So he was impressed. He was impressed by Esther. He was impressed by her demeanor, impressed by her beauty, impressed by her poise, everything you could think of in being a beautiful woman, an outstanding woman. He was just impressed by her. Right? Read on.
She obtained kindness of him, and she speedily gave her things for purification, which such things as belonged to her, and 7 maidens, which were meet to be given her. Which were met to be given her.
Yeah, so she was given up her things for purification, her personal items, but she was also given 7 handmaids as well. All right, read on.
Out of the king's house, and he preferred her and her maids unto the best place of the house of women. Esther had not showed her people nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it.
Read it again.
Esther had not showed her people nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it.
Right. So she was not to tell anybody, directed by Mordecai, not to tell anybody of her kindred or her nationality. Right? She was told not to do it. What could possibly be the reason why? Who knows? But maybe it would have interfered with what is going to happen later on. Go ahead, Art.
That Mordecai was a Jew, and that she would be a Jew, and the king would know that.
For sure. Read on.
And Mordecai walked every day from the court of the women's house to know how Esther did, and what should become of her. Now, when every maid turn was come to go into King Ahasuerus.
Salakia, before you keep going, y'all can serve up the food. Y'all can eat. Y'all go ahead and eat, man. Y'all get that food going. Don't bring me no plate. I'm good for right now. Oh, go ahead, Art. Oh, it is. Okay, well, if y'all still y'all still can get down. Yeah, y'all go ahead and get down. Oh, don't serve me up nothing right now. But y'all could give me some more, y'all young. That look too wild. Yeah. Okay, no sweat. All right, I will wait on it. All right, read on, Salakia.
Now, when every maid's turn was come to go into the king Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months, according to the manner of women, for so were the days of their purification accomplished. To wit, 6 months with oil and myrrh, and 6 months with sweet odors, and with others for the purifying of women. Verse 13. Then thus came every maiden unto the king, whatsoever she desired was given her to go with her out of the house of women unto the king's house. Verse 14. In the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned unto the second house of the women, to the custody of Shaashgaz, the king's chamberlain, which kept the concubine. She came into her, the king, no more, except the king delighted in her, and that she were called by name.
Read that. I'm Salaki. Read that one more time.
Verse
that verse.
14. In the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned into the second house of the women, to the custody of Shaashgaz, the king's chamberlain, which kept the concubines. She came in unto the king no more, except the king delighted in her, and that she were called by name. Right.
So the next time she would see him is when what? When she's called. Oh, Salaki, go ahead. Salaki. Unless she was requested by the king. All right.
Verse 15. Now when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her for his daughter, was come to go unto the king, she required nothing but Haggai, the king's chamberlain, the keeper of women appointed. And Esther obtained favor in the sight of all them that looked upon her. Verse 16.
Esther was so beautiful that everybody who saw her in that time when she was getting ready to meet the king would just gazed upon her. She was admired. She was admired for her beauty. She was admired for her beautiful hair, her clothing, her jewelry, everything that she wore. She was just a beautiful woman. Read on.
Verse 16. So Esther was taken unto King Ahasuerus into his house, royal in 10th month, which is the month Tebet, the 7th year of his reign. And verse 17. And the king loved Esther above all women, and she obtained grace and favor in the sight more than all the virgins.
Because we have all the bad women.
Right.
I don't care what nobody say. If you give yourself a hand, if you're a sister inside of the I.S.U.P.K, if you're a sister in the nation of Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel, you bad. You know what I'm saying? Because all of the other nations want you. They wanted Esther bad. They didn't even know he didn't even at the time know she was Jewish, or that she was a Jew, Salaki, or that she was a Hebrew. You know what I'm saying? But they wanted her, he wanted her bad because she was just that damn bad. Right? Read on.
So that he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti.
And made her queen over his woman, right? Over Vashti. Right? Read on.
Verse 18. Then the king made a great feast unto all the princes and his servants, even Esther's feast. And he made a release of the provinces and gave gifts according to the state of the king. And when the virgins were gathered together the second time, then Mordecai sat in the king's gate. Verse 20. Esther had not yet showed her kindred nor her people, as Mordecai had charged her. For Esther did the commandment of Mordecai, like as when she was brought up with him.
Damn right. Read on. Mordecai still had that influence over her because he raised her up, and she trusted him to be able to lead and guide. Shalom, Lord of Christ. She trusted him to guide her through all of her everything that she's doing. Mordecai obviously was chosen by the Most High for this situation because of the fact that he's conducting the way that he's doing it is strategic. You know what I'm saying? He's guiding her in this situation to make sure that everything goes a certain way. Read on.
Verse 21. In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, two of the king's chamberlains, Bigthan and Teresh.
Because you got to think of it in a warfare aspect, right? Why would he even be guiding her to do this at all? You understand? Like Mordecai got something on his mind. He's like, well, maybe this might be liberation for our people. This might be something that's going to help us to get out of this situation. Go ahead.
It seemed like, so I agree with us heavy. It seemed like what he was doing was putting her in a position just in case, putting her in at least a position, making sure that she did the right things to be in a position to have the king's favor.
Mordecai is playing chess. Yeah, damn right. Mordecai is playing chess, and he knows that woman has an outstanding beauty that every king is going to want. Read on.
Verse 1. In those days when Mordecai sat in the king's gate, two of the king's chamberlains, Bigthan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were wroth and sought to lay hand on King Ahasuerus.
And plotted so these two of the chamberlains.
In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, two of the king's chamberlains.
Yeah, two of the king's chamberlains were plotting on him. They wanted to assassinate Ahasuerus. They wanted him dead. Oh, no, I don't need no ginger ale. I'll take it straight out. Most High Christ. Yeah, they wanted to assassinate Ahasuerus, right? Read on that.
Two of the king's chamberlains, Bigthan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were wroth and sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus.
Yeah, they wanted him dead, right? Read on.
And the thing was known to Mordecai.
And the thing was known to Mordecai. You understand? Mordecai Mordecai knew that these men, just imagine them sitting there sounding jealous. I can't stand that bastard. I think we should kill him. I think we should kill him. And Mordecai overheard that. Right on.
And the thing was known to Mordecai, who told it to Esther, the queen. And Esther certified the king. Therefore, in Mordecai's name.
And so Esther found out about it because Mordecai told Esther, and Esther basically briefed the king in that situation. And she also made sure she said, Mordecai was the one who told me about it. Right? Right? Read on.
Verse 23. And when the inquisition was made of the matter.
When the inquisition, meaning the investigation, because they had to go and investigate to find out if what was saying was true. Read on.
Was made of the matter, it was found out. Therefore, they were both hanged on a tree.
It was found out. Mordecai was telling the truth. These chamberlains were planning on assassinating King Ahasuerus, and then therefore they were hung by the neck. Read on.
They were both hanged on a tree, and it was written in the book of Chronicles before the king.
Damn right. Read on.
After these things, did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of the Hammedatha, and the Agagite, and advanced him, and set his seat above all the princes that were with him.
Right. Now we're going to go into Haman, right? We're going to go into Haman, and Haman is now the second man in charge of Persia, right? He is the king's right-hand man, and he plays a significant role inside of this one, right? He plays a deadly role in this, right? And we're going to keep reading on. So like it. I'm going to give you a little bit of background about Haman real quick inside the Bible dictionary. Let me get it back. I got you. No sweat. It's right here. Just give you a little bit. Anytime y'all want to understand and know the names of the people or the Bible, make sure you get you a Bible, a Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary, and where you can get a little bit of background information of either the land or the city or the people that's being talked about in the Bible. All right, let's get Haman, find out what his
Haman,
who he
from
is.
the Compact Bible Dictionary. Haman, the great enemy of the Jews in the days of Esther, Ahasuerus or Xerxes.
He was a great enemy of the Jews. So far, what you do know about Haman is that he was an enemy, right? This is not somebody who's a friend. This is an enemy of the Jews. So the role he's getting ready to play inside of this story obviously ain't a good one. It obviously ain't good for the Jews. All right, read on.
And he is known in the secular history, had promoted Haman to the high position in the court, but Mordecai, the noble Jew, refused to do him obeisance. And so Haman plotted to destroy the Jewish race, or actually the Jews. They say Jewish race, right? But God intervened. How will intervene? Esther foiled Haman's plot, and Haman died in the gallows he had made for Mordecai. So the
Bible Dictionary just gave you a background of who Haman is, and you're going to see it play out right inside of the book of Esther. All right? Let's get it.
Chapter 3, verse 3. Then the king's servant were in the king's gate said to Mordecai, why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Let's go back and read verse 2, sir.
Please. Matter of fact, just start from the top again.
From verse 3. Verse 3. Chapter 3.
Verse 1. Yeah, chapter 3, verse 1.
After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha,
okay,
and the Agagite, and advanced him, and he set his seat above all the princes that were with him, and all the king's servants.
So now imagine just in the beginning, right? What did it say in the beginning? His nobles were the highest men. Those princes were the highest men in that time period. But this man, Haman, was put over those princes, meaning that he is the top, right up under Cyrus. You know what I'm saying? This man got a lot of power. Right? Read on.
And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman.
Oh, and everybody bowed and reverenced Haman as though he was the damn king, right? Read on.
Bowed and reverenced Haman. For the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not.
But Mordecai what?
Bowed not.
But Mordecai what?
Bowed not.
But Mordecai bowed not. Why? It's there's a reason why Mordecai didn't bow. Because he's not a heathen. He's not the other nations. This is a man who knows who he is, and we don't bow to nobody else other than our God.
That's right.
Right? So that's the reason why he didn't bow. And that's gangster right there.
Right.
Because he's supposed to have been killed right on the spot. Right? Read on.
Nor did him reverence.
Nor did he reverence him. He ain't over there waddling and, oh, master, this and that. No, he ain't doing all of that. Read on.
Verse 3. Then the king's servant, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, why transgresseth thou the king's commandment?
So why did you transgress the king's commandment to go and not bow down or reverence Haman? Read on.
Verse 4. Now it came to pass when they spake daily unto him, and that he hearkened not unto them.
Every day that they passed by Mordecai, Mordecai would not do it. Read on.
Hearken not unto them. They told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matter would stand. For he had told them that he was a Jew.
Mordecai said, I am a Jew. Let me explain something to y'all. When y'all out in public, don't be afraid to be who the hell you are.
That's right.
Because Mordecai was not afraid to be a Jew. Mordecai was not afraid to be a Hebrew Israelite. Mordecai was not sitting here pretending and he didn't go around taking off his dawadah, sticking his dawadah down his damn shirt.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
That's not what he did. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't afraid for you to know that he was a Jew. And the reason why he did not bow down was because he is a Jew and he knew and he wanted them to know that. You understand? You can't be afraid to be a Hebrew Israelite, man, because that's your identity. That's who you are. No cowards, man. You understand? Read on.
Why transgresseth thou the king's commandment? Verse 4. Now it came to pass when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matter would stand, for he had told him he was a Jew. Verse 5. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath.
Oh, Haman was pissed off because he couldn't get this nigga to bow down. Oh, you not gonna bow down, nigga? You not gonna bow down? He wanted him to bow down, and he wouldn't do it, right? Because Mordecai knew who he was. He knew who his God was, and that's not a compromise he was willing to take. That was not something he was willing to do. You understand? There are some things you should never ever compromise, man. You got to have a strong backbone when you in this truth. You know what I'm saying? Your identity, who you are, you don't compromise that. You don't go around here being and trying to hide who you are for the sake of how somebody else feels. That's not how we work in Israel, man. You understand? Read on.
And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone.
He wanted to lay hands on Mordecai alone. Read on. Laying hands meaning he wanted to fight him. Read on.
For they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all of the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of I.S.U.P.K.
So now he's so damn upset. He's so mad at Mordecai because Mordecai went bow to him. Now he wants to take it out on all of the Jews. Read on, God.
I.S.U.P.K, even the people of Mordecai. In the first month, that is the month of Nisan, in the 12th month year of I.S.U.P.K, they cast Purim. that is the lot, before Haman from day to day and month to month to 12 months, that is the month of Adar. Verse 8, and Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom.
Now here go Haman deviling. Here go Haman deviling, right? Now he's up in Ahasuerus' ear telling him there's a certain people scattered around here, right? He's talking about the Jews. Read on.
There's a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among all the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all the people.
And their laws are diverse. Why? Because our laws are diverse, right? Our laws are diverse, and our laws are what? They're holy. Give me the scripture that says that the laws are only for Israel. Find me some precepts to that. Because our law, we do everything different. That's what makes us different from everybody else. We don't eat pork, shrimp, crab, and lobster.
Right.
You understand? Them Hamites over there eating monkey paws and monkey soup, eyeball soup, anything you could think of. They eating human albino feet, pig's feet, whatever you want to call it. We don't eat that. That's not in our dietary law. Go ahead,
It's like, sir, Mark Duckett ran it past me. He said them Hamites also eat mosquito packs.
Man, come on, man. And I seen a video like that where they was kind of mushing it up like fufu and throwing it on the grill like patties. You understand? Like, come on, man. Like, go ahead.
So you leave it to Moab, he gonna give you a nice batch of deep fried puppy bones.
Facts. You understand? So we you know what I'm saying? We got laws that nobody else understands or deals with because these laws were given to us. Give me that scripture that says that the laws were given to Israel that nobody else. You know what scripture I'm talking about. They weren't given to anybody else. Psalms 147 and 19. Give me that.
All right.
Read it loud. Read it loud.
All right. He showeth his word unto Jacob.
And next time somebody else have it ready, that way he doesn't lose his spot. Go ahead.
He showeth his word unto Jacob.
He showeth his word unto Jacob. Jacob is the father of the 12 tribes of Israel, who name later became Israel. Right? And the 12 tribes sprang out of this man's loins. Read on.
His statutes and judgments unto Israel.
His statutes and judgments, everything you read in that King James Version Bible, those laws, statutes, and commandments, our customs, our traditions, that was given to him. Read on.
He hath not dealt so with any nation.
He hath not what?
He hath not dealt so with any nation.
He hath not dealt so with any nation. These laws, statutes, and commandments are holy. These belong to us. This belongs to us. So that's why our laws, our customs are different. You understand? And they knew that in the book of Esther. Haman knew that. And that's why he was telling the Ahasuerus what? Read it again from
he have not.
Go back to Esther.
Verse Esther 4 and
that's why somebody got to always have this on the side so that he doesn't have to lose his spot. Go ahead. I would like some wine if we got some. Yeah, please.
And when Haman the king Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all the people. Neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore, it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of
if
silver.
you could pour this out for me real quick. Read that from the top, Salaki.
And Haman said unto the king Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of the kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people.
And their laws are diverse from all people, right? Read on.
Neither keep they the king's law.
So now Haman is saying that the Jews don't even keep the king's laws. That Mordecai, and he based that off the fact that Mordecai was what? Not bowing down to him, right? Which was a commandment of the king. Read on.
Therefore, it is not for the king's profit to suffer them.
So it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. Read on.
If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed.
If it please the king, let's destroy the Jews. Let's destroy them because they have their own laws they follow. They don't follow your laws. They don't like your laws. Forget your laws. They don't look at you as a king, right? So let's kill them, right? Read on. That's what Haman is saying.
And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have charged the business to bring it unto the king's treasury.
Read on.
And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha.
That is you got to understand. You can't understand the level of respect or power you have to have for the king to take off his ring and give it to you, because that's him transferring his power to you to be able to make a decree or to do something that only the king would have been able to do. That's how much respected and trusted that he was to King Ahasuerus, right? And so, go ahead, read on.
He gave it to Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. Verse 11, and the king said unto Haman, the silver is given unto thee, the people also to do with them as it seemeth good to thee.
To do with them what it seemed that is good to thee, right? And then we know in the Haman's mind, he wanted to go ahead and instinct. He wanted to put the Jews into extinction.
Right.
He wanted them dead, right? That's what he was going to do with his power. Read on. No sweat. What are y'all on verse 10? All right.
And the king looked, and the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the king of Agagite, the Jews' enemy. 11. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also to with them. It seemeth good to thee.
In other words, the money he's given him the money to go and do the things that he needs to do to get rid of the Jews, and he's giving him power to do what he sees fit for it. Go ahead, read on.
Then were the king's scribes.
What verse are you on?
12.
Verse 12.
Then were the king's scribes.
In other words, what you want to do is whenever you get ready to go to the next verse, you want to say verse 12 so everybody will know where you at. Go ahead.
Verse 12. Then were the king's scribes called to the 13th day of the first month, and there was written, according to all that Haman had commanded unto the kings of Withians, and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of the people of every province, according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, in the name of the king Ahasuerus was it written and sealed with the king's ring. 13. And the letter were sent by boat into all the king's province to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women. And one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, is to take spoil of them for prey.
So
14.
now, before he goes into that, now just imagine how devastated this is going to be, or this would have been right? If it wasn't for how it actually turns out. But this is a decree that's going out to everybody, including the princes, including all of the nobles, everybody. Let them know that letting them know that they are to go and slaughter the Israelites, to annihilate them, man, to destroy them, right? And so this decree is being put out for basically the extinction of the Jews, right? Read on.
14. The copy of the writing
Mm-hmm.
for the commandment to be given into every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. 15.
So basically, you want to send everybody into war with the Jews. Us little Jews right here in our own corner of this particular kingdom, about to be slaughtered by everybody around us. You understand? This is what Haman's decree was about. Read on.
Verse 15. The post went out being.
All because this man is mad because Mordecai didn't bow to him.
Right.
All because he felt that the Jews shouldn't be able to worship or to be able, shouldn't be able to follow their own laws, but follow the laws of the king. Right? Read on.
Verse 15. The post went out being hasty by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shashan,
Mm-hmm.
the palace.
Mm-hmm.
And the king and Haman sat down to drink. But the city Shashan was perplexed. Chapter 4. When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on a sackcloth with ash, and went out unto the midst of the city and cried with a loud and a bitter cry.
This was very upsetting to Mordecai, man. This was very upsetting to Mordecai to hear that the Jews were getting ready to be annihilated. Why? Because he is a Jew, and his people were about to be destroyed, right? And so this upset him, and he rent his clothes and put on burlap and ashes. It was a tradition on how you on how we how we would lament or how we would cry or wail in the time of trouble or something evil happening to us. You understand? And that's what he did, right? Read on.
Verse 2. It came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. Verse 3. And in every province, whatsoever the kings commanded, and his decree came, there was a great mourning among the Jews, in the fasting, in the weeping, in the wailing, and many laid in sackcloth and ashes.
Everywhere that decree, every city that decree went to, where there was Jews living in the province, and they heard about this decree, it caused them to wail. Wailing, I mean, we talking about real crying. We talking about hollering and screaming because they knew that was the end of them. They knew that decree meant that they were going to die, their children were going to die, their women were going to die, and it was a wrap for Israel, right? Read on.
Verse 4. So Esther's maids in her chamberlains came and told it her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai and to take away his sackcloth from him. So
they came to deliver Esther the message that of what Mordecai understood from this decree, from what he heard about his decree, and it caused her to want to send him some clothes, because he had rented his clothes, right? Read on. And she was deeply upset about it. Read on.
But he received it not.
Go ahead.
Verse 5. Then called Esther for Hattak, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend upon her.
Mm-hmm.
He gave him a commandment
Mm-hmm.
to Mordecai to know what it was and why it was.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 6.
So she wanted to find out what was going on. So she sent one of her chamberlains to go to find out what was going on with Mordecai, what was happening, and that's what she did. Read on.
Verse 6. So Hattak went forth
Mm-hmm.
to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate.
Mm-hmm.
And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them. Verse 8. Also, he gave him a copy of the writing of the decree that was given to Shushan to destroy them, to shew it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king to make supplication unto him, and to make requests before him for her people. Verse 9.
Before you go any further, so in other words, after she was explained to after it was explained to her what was going on, the extent of the matter, based on what was going to happen to their people, he wanted her to go and talk and sit down with the king and explain to her what's going on, to explain to King Ahasuerus what's going on. You understand? This is Mordecai's attempt to save Israel, because Israel is about to be destroyed by the hand of Haman, by Haman's money. You understand? A bloodshed was about to happen because of Haman evil hatred towards the Israelites, man, and his hatred towards Mordecai. Right? Read on.
Verse 9. And Hattak came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again, Esther spoke unto Hattak and gave him commandment unto Mordecai. Verse 11. All the king's servants and people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his to put him to death.
So her message to send back to Mordecai was that if I go and appear before the king without being invited, then what's going to happen? I'm going to be doomed to death. I'm going to die, because it was a law that you could not go and appear into the king's chamber unless you were invited, right? Which is what we talked about in the morning. In the morning. So like, the wine got to me a little bit in the morning. Earlier, Salakia, read on.
Except such to whom the king shall hold out the garden.
Except that he holds out the scepter, right, to allow her to go in. Go ahead.
That he may live, but I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. And they told, verse 12, and they told Mordecai Esther's words. So
they delivered the message back to Mordecai, right? So this is just back and forth messages being sent back and forth. This is Mordecai saying, hey, this is what's about to happen to the Israelites. Israelites about to be destroyed, right? This is Esther saying, well, what you want me to do about it? And this is Mordecai saying, go talk to the king, make supplication with him. Right. And then this is her sending him back saying, well, if I go talk to him, I could possibly put to death, because we got a law that says if I go and stand before the king without being invited, I'm going to be put to death, right?
Right.
Read on.
Verse 13. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews.
Read it again.
Verse 13. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews.
He said, think not that thou will escape from the king's house more than all the Jews, because Esther is a Jew, right? And if all the Jews get destroyed, he's trying to let you know you will be killed as well.
Right.
Read on.
Verse 14. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed.
Mordecai is saying that God will deliver us if you don't do anything about it. God will still deliver us, but you and your fathers will get cut off. Why? Because it would be such an evil and treacherous thing if Esther would have not done anything with the position of power that she has at that time.
Right.
It would have been evil. We know that she's not going to do that. But however, Mordecai, give Mordecai a hand for guiding that woman, because women need to be guided, right? He guided that woman and told her exactly what it needed to happen. And we're going to read on. Read on.
And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this?
Mm-hmm.
Verse 15. Then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer. Go gather to verse 16. Go gather together all Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me.
Because Esther, even though she was married to this king, she still held on to her principles and her traditions. She knew she needed them to fast for her, which is a tradition of who? The Jews. Right? Read on.
And neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish.
Just read that again. If I perish, I perish. Read that part again.
And if I perish, I perish.
Esther was a true martyr. Esther was a true martyr. She was ready to die for her people. Because she told Mordecai, she said, I'll go. I'll talk to him. I know that it's against the law to just go talk to him without him inviting me. However, I'm going to do it. But she was a real bad woman. She wasn't just beautiful. You know what I'm saying? She wasn't just beautiful and had the looks and the beauty, the body and all of that, the cute face and all of that. She was a woman that loved her nation for real.
Right.
For real, she loved her nation. And so she was willing to die if it meant that it was going to protect her nation. Read on.
17. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. Chapter 5. Now it came to pass on the third day that Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in the inner courts of the king's house, over against the king's house, and the king sat upon the royal throne in the royal house, over against the gate of the house. Verse 2. And it was so, when the king saw Esther, the queen, standing in the court, that she obtained.
Start from the top. I read that verse from the top.
Verse 2. And it was so, when the king saw Esther, the queen, standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter. Verse 3. Then said the king unto her, what wilt thou, Queen Esther?
He asked her, what do you want? So in other words, back to that other scripture, Salaki, on verse 2, he stuck out the scepter, because that was to let her know that he was okay with her being there or approaching him, right? So then he asked her, what is it that you want, right? Read on.
And what is thy request?
What is thy request? Read on.
It shall be even given thee to the half of the kingdom.
He said, damn, he said it would even be given, whatever your request is, you will even receive half of the kingdom if that's what you wanted. That's how bad Esther was. He was willing to give half of what he has to her. You understand? And this is a Jew. This is a black woman right here, man. Right? Read on.
Verse 4. And Esther answered, if it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him.
She said, if it pleases the king, then let you and Haman, she's going to bring them to a banquet together. But she's trying to invite them to come to a banquet that she wants to set up, right? Now she's playing chess, right? Read on.
Verse 5. Then the king said, cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther has said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. Verse 6. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? Even to the half of the kingdom, it shall be performed.
Whatever your request is, I'm gonna give it to you. Even if you want a half of the kingdom, I'm gonna give it to you. That's what he felt about Esther. That's how Ahasuerus was getting down with Esther. He was telling her, I'll give you whatever it is that you want, whatever your request is. Read on.
Verse 7. Then answered Esther and said, my petition and my request is, verse 8, if I have found favor in thy sight of the king, and if it is pleased the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them. And I will do tomorrow as the king has said. Then went to Haman forth that day, joyful and with glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up, nor moved, have given Esther the house of Haman, and him they have hanged upon the gallows.
Hold on, what verse are you on right now? You on verse 7? Okay, let me see. Okay. You sure you ain't on verse 9?
I'm still on verse 9.
Okay, read verse 9.
For him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. Verse 10. Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself. And when he came home, he sent and called for his friends. And Zeresh, his wife, and Haman told them of the glory of his riches, and the multitude of his children, and all the things wherein the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the princes in the service of the king. Verse 12. Haman said, moreover, Esther, the queen, did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared, but myself, and tomorrow am I invited unto her.
So to give you clarity of what's happening, right? So Esther invited Haman and the king to a banquet, right? So now Haman is with his wife and his children and his people, and he's telling them, he's bragging. He's saying, yeah, I got these honors, The king is looking at me like this. This is what's going on. Look, I got promoted to that, blah, blah, blah. And not only that, on top of this, oh man, they invited me to a banquet. And it's just gonna be me and the king, right? Read on.
Verse 13, yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai, the Jew, sitting at the king's gate. Verse 14, then said.
So in other words, he's saying all of this don't mean nothing to me if I continue seeing Mordecai, because he just hates Mordecai so bad, man. He hate Mordecai so bad. Read on.
Verse 14, then said Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends unto him, let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet, and the thing pleased her man, and he caused the gallows to be made. Verse 6.
So he built these gallows to do what? To see if anybody paid attention. What did he build the gallows for? Go ahead, Abon.
Mordecai building the, not Mordecai, but Haman building the hanging Mordecai from.
Haman build. Go ahead, Art. What you about to say?
Haman built the hang. Right, I agree with that, but I'm asking. He built them to hang all the Jews in Mordecai.
Right. Y'all both are right. He made them to hang Mordecai. Right. Read on.
Chapter 6, verse 1. On that night could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the book of records of the chronicles, and they were read before the king. Verse 2. And it was found written that Mordecai had told Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus. Verse 3. And the king said, what honor and dignity have been done to Mordecai for this? Then said the king's servant that ministered unto him, there is nothing done for him. Verse 4. And the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman has come into the outward court of the king's house to speak unto the king to hang Mordecai.
What verse you on?
Verse 4, sir.
What chapter?
Chapter 6.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
I'll start first, verse 4 over again.
Go ahead.
And the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman was come into the outward court of the king's house to speak unto the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows.
Right. This is Haman was just an evil bastard, really. He what his job was, what he wanted to do. He hated the Jews, man. He wanted to hang them and to hang Mordecai also for not bowing to him, right? So basically, he came to the read that 4 again. I'm sorry, Slocky.
From the top, sir.
Wow.
And the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman was coming to the outward court of the king's house.
Right. He coming out with the court of the king's house. You better be in business. You're going to get killed. But he knew that. Go ahead.
To speak unto the king to hang Mordecai.
Right. Go ahead.
On the gallows that he had prepared for him.
The same gallows that he had prepared for Haman to Mordecai. Going to hang him.
Keep reading, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Verse 5.
Read it from the top. Where you at?
I was on verse 4, sir.
Go back to 4. Yeah, go to 4.
Esther, chapter 6, verse 4. And the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman was coming to the outward court of the king's house.
Stop right there. Go back to verse 1.
Verse 1, chapter 6. Okay, Esther, chapter 6, verse 1. On that night could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the book of records of the chronicles, and they were read before the king. Verse 2. And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hands on the king Ahasuerus.
So now he's brought this book of all of the recent accounts of things that have happened in here, because they keep account of all the history of things that have happened, major events that have happened in that kingdom, right? So he had them to bring this book that details certain records of certain situations. And in those records was found that Mordecai, right? Because you remember all the way in the back at the beginning of the chapter, Mordecai saved the king from being assassinated by two chamberlains, right? And so that was brought out, right? So he remembered that Mordecai did that. Read on.
Verse 4. And the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman was coming to the outward court of the king's house to speak unto the king, to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. Verse 5. And the king's servant said unto him, behold, Haman standeth in the court. And the king said, let him come in. Verse 6. So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, what shall be done unto the man who the king delighteth to honor? Now Haman thought in his heart, to whom would the king delight to do honor more than...
Hold on. Y'all too loud. There are other people who are trying to understand what's going on. Quiet it down. Go ahead.
Verse 6. So
go back to verse 4.
Esther chapter 6, verse 4. And the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman was coming to the court. Now Haman was coming to the outward court of the king's house to speak unto the king, to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. Verse 5. And the king's servant said unto him, behold, Haman standeth in the court. And the king said, let him come in. Verse 6. So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, what shall be done unto the man who the king delighteth or honor? Now Haman thought in his heart, to whom would the king delight? To whom the king would... Now Haman thought in his heart, to whom the king delight to do honor more than myself.
Right. He wanted to know who the king wanted to honor more than him, because Haman again was the top official under Cyrus. Read on.
Verse 7. And Haman answered the king for the man whom the king delighteth to honor. Verse 8. Let the royal apparel be brought which the king useth to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown royal.
So this crown and this garment that King Asuerus wants to bring out to honor this man with, he's requesting it, and the whole time, Haman is thinking it's him that's going to get honored. Right? Read on.
And the crown royal which is set upon his head. Verse 9. And let this apparel and the horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble prince, that they may array the man withal, whom the king delighteth to honor, and bring him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, thus shall it be done to the man who the king delighteth to honor. Verse 10. Then the king said to Haman, make haste and take the apparel and the horse, as thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai, the Jew, that sitteth at the king's gate. Let nothing fail of all that thou hast spoken. Verse 11. Then took Haman the apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and brought him on the horseback through the streets of the city, and proclaimed before him, thus shall it be done unto the man whom the king delighteth or honor. Verse 12. And Mordecai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hasted.
Before you continue, that had to hurt, boy. That had to hurt, because he thought it was going to be him, and it ended up being the man that he hated so much, the man that inspired him to want to try to destroy the entire nation of the Jews. Right? Read on. Go ahead.
He was setting him up. And he fell for hook, line, and sinker.
God.
He was trying to, he knew. I'm pretty sure he knew Haman was the culprit. Had to come bring him out.
Read on.
But Haman hasted to this house mourning and having his head covered. Verse 13, and Haman told Zeresh, his wife.
Hold on, Salaki, that nigga was crying. He was crying. He was hurt. Boy, was humiliated.
God.
I'm sorry, what was you on 13?
Salaki, verse 13.
Go ahead.
And Haman told Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends, everything that had befallen him. Then said his wise men and Zeresh, his wife, unto him, if Mordecai be of the seed of the Jews, before him thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him, but shall surely before Salaki, but shall surely fall before him.
They trying to tell him that if this is what's going on, and the king is giving Mordecai all of this love and this honor, it's not going to be wise for you to continue trying to go after Mordecai, because eventually it's going to cause you to be put to death. His people trying to tell him that. His wife trying to tell him that. Read on.
Verse 14, and while they were yet talking with him, came the king's chamberlain and hasted to bring Haman unto the banquet that Esther had prepared.
Remember, there's a banquet that was prepared that was only supposed to be Haman and Ahasuerus and Esther. Read on.
Esther chapter 7, verse 1. So the king and Haman came into the banquet with Esther the queen.
What time is it? Give me the time. Time check. Time we got?
8:30, sir.
Okay, we're good. Go ahead.
Verse 2. And the king said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition, Queen Esther? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request?
Now remember, all of this banquet is set up because she's doing what Mordecai told her to do, which is to make supplication with the king and talk to the king, get the king to stop this decree that went out to destroy or to annihilate or to extinct or I'm sorry, put all of the Jews to death. Right? Read on.
And it shall be performed even to the half of the kingdom. Verse 3. Then Esther, the queen, answered and said, if I have found favor in thy sight, O king.
If I pleased you and I find favor in your sight, then please read on.
O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given at my petition, and my people at my request.
So basically, let my life be spared, and the people and my people's life be spared as well. Read on.
Verse 4. For we are sold, and my people to be destroyed, to be slain.
So now she's telling him, she's revealing to him, my people are planning on being destroyed or being killed. Read on.
And to perish.
And perish. Read on.
But if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage.
Right. I could remain quiet if we were just slaves, and it meant we could keep our lives, or we could retain our lives but have to work in servitude. But because now Haman wants us all dead, I can't close my mouth. Right. I gotta open my mouth because my people are gonna die now. Right. You know what I'm saying? Read on.
Verse 5. Then the king Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther, the queen, who is he and where is he? The doers presume. Is his heart to do so? Verse 6. And Esther said, the adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. The
adversary and enemy of the Jews was Haman, right? This is the man that wanted all the Jews dead, and this is who is now being exposed to the king Ahasuerus, man, right? Because Esther did her due diligence, and she followed orders, and she was being obedient, and she was able to save the Jews, right? Read on.
Then Haman was afraid before the king.
Haman was afraid like a freaking coward anyway. So like I was gonna use the other word, but we got children in here. Yeah, was afraid because he was a coward. Read on.
Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. Verse 7. And the king, arisen from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden, and Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king.
He knew at this point Haman was gonna kill him because that's Esther, man. And you was trying to kill her people, and this is a woman that she loves, that he loves, and you was about to use your power to slaughter people for nothing. Yeah, he knew at that point he was gonna die, so he wanted to try to make it right with Esther. Read on.
Verse 8. Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen upon the bed wherein Esther was. Then said the king, will he force the queen also?
He fell on the queen's bed in fear because he saw King Ahasuerus coming back. He fell out of bed and he said, well, damn, are you gonna take my woman too? You gonna force her too?
Before me in this house?
Because at this point he knew that Haman really was a wicked bastard. Right? Read on.
Before me in this house.
Before me in this house, like in front of me. Read on.
As the word went out of the king's mouth.
What verse are we on?
We on it's still verse
8. Okay, read on.
The end part.
As
the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Verse 9. And Harbonah, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, behold, also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who has spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, hang him thereon. Verse 10.
Let me explain to y'all what just happened in that one. So at that point, King Ahasuerus had already made up his mind, and he had his boys go over there and throw something over his face. You know what I'm saying? Because they was about to put him to death. And the same gallows, the same exact gallows that this man wanted to kill Mordecai with, King Ahasuerus made a decree that he would be killed on those gallows. Right? Because of his evil and his hatred towards us. Right? This is nothing but the Most High. You understand? It's nothing but the Most High protecting us from our enemies, man, through a brave man named Mordecai and his brave cousin, who we know as Esther. Read on. Go ahead.
So I just want to make a statement. It's just showing, like, even though Haman is not our people, the Most High can give you things and he can take it right away from you.
You damn right.
He was in a powerful position. I was about to die.
But you can't stand against the Lord's people, man. Read on out. What verse you on?
Esther chapter 7, verse 10. So they hanged Haman.
So they did what?
So they hanged Haman.
So they put him to death. Read on.
On the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified.
So the anger of the king was over with because he got exactly what he wanted.
Right.
Was for that devil to be put to death. Read on.
Esther chapter 8, verse 1. On that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman, the Jews' enemy, unto Esther the queen.
So he gave everything that Haman had to Esther the queen. All of his property, all of his handmaids, all of his servants or slaves, whatever he had was given to Esther. Read on.
And Mordecai came before
Go ahead.
And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. Verse 2. And the king took
off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. Verse 3, and Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman, the Agagite,
the Agagite,
as his device that he had devised against the Jews. Verse 4, then the king held out the golden scepter toward Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king. Verse 5, and said, if it please the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the thing seem right before the king, and I be pleasant, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised.
So now she's requesting that what Haman was doing be reversed. He wanted all of them dead. The letters and the decrees went out all to other nations that the Jews were to be destroyed. So now what she was requesting from him was that he sent out a decree that they do not be destroyed. That way they wouldn't be slaughtered, because of course this decree is still out. Right? Read on.
Be written unto reverse the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha, a Gadagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews which were in all the king's province. Verse 6, for how can I endure to see the evil that shall become unto me, come unto my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? Verse 7.
And this is why you're in here today, man. You're in here because you don't want to see the slaughter of your people. Because you don't want to see the slaughter of your families. You've decided that when you joined the I.S.U.P.K, that you were going to start obeying the Lord's law, statutes, and commandments, because you want to see Israel thrive. You want to see us live forever, man. You understand? You don't want to see no more drugs in our neighborhoods. You don't want to see no more crack cocaine and opioids and all of the evil things that are plaguing our people. You know what I'm saying? So you came in here and you fought the same way that Mordecai and Esther did to prevent Israel from dying in that time period. So give yourselves a hand for that, man. Give yourselves a hand. This is not don't take this lightly. Don't think that you're up in here for nothing. You understand? You are in here doing a great ordeal for the Most High by getting this truth out, learning this truth and obeying him and getting it out, man. You understand? Right. And you gotta stand 10 toes down on this. Right? Read on.
You say read on?
Yeah, read on. No sweat.
Esther chapter 8, verse 7. Then the king Ahasuerus said unto Esther, the queen, and to Mordecai, the Jew, behold, I have given Esther the house of the Haman, and him they have hanged upon the gallows because he laid his hands upon the Jews. Verse 8, write ye also for the Jews, as it liketh you in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring, for the writing which is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's ring, may no man reverse. Verse 9, then were the king's scribes called at the time in the 3rd month, that is the month Sivan, on the 23rd day thereof, and it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews, and to the lieutenants and the deputies and rulers of the provinces which are from India unto Ethiopia, in 127 provinces, unto every province according to the written thereof, and unto every people after their language, and to the Jews according to their writing and according to their language. Verse 10, And he wrote in the king's Ahasuerus name, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by post on horseback, and riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries. That's right. Out of line.
Say that one more time.
And young dromedaries.
That's right.
Verse 11, wherein the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish, and the power of the people in both.
So in other words, anybody that would try to come up against them, even after the decree, they were allowed to stand up for themselves and join, make militias in order to stop them from trying to kill them. Because you got to understand, there might have been people who just wanted to kill them anyway, right? Or try to act like, oh well, we didn't receive no other decree. Well, we still got the orders to kill you. All right, okay, bet. All right, read on.
Khan Khan, and all the power of the people and provinces that would assault them, both little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. Verse 12, upon one day in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, namely upon the 13th day of the 20th month, which is the month of Adar. Verse 13, the copy of the written for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, and that the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves to their enemies. Verse 14, so the posts that rode upon mules and camels went out, being hasted and pressed on by the king's commandment, and the decree was given at the Shushan, the place. Verse 15, and Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, and with a great crown of gold, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. Verse 16, the Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. Verse 17, and in every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them.
Most High Christ. Give that a hand, man. Give that a hand. Any more on that? That's it.
It goes into chapter 9.
Go to chapter 9. Let's keep reading.
Esther, chapter 9.
What time is it?
So like you say, it's 8:46.
8:46. Read a few more verses and then we're gonna be done with it. You gotta understand the importance of this, man. We were going to be annihilated, man.
That's right.
We was about to be done for.
Right.
You know, some of the spirit of the Lord was in Mordecai. The spirit of the Lord was in Esther, just like the spirit of the Lord is in you today.
Right.
You understand? You don't understand the small impact you have on Israel by not joining yourself with these heathens, man. You understand? You please the Lord by coming up in here and not eating pork, shrimp, crab, and lobster and obeying the law, statutes, and commandments. You please the Lord, and that provokes the Lord to do what we need him to do, which is to save us from the onslaught of our enemies. Our enemies want us dead, man. That's why it's so much drugs. That's why it's so much police brutality. That's why it's so much, exploitation of our people that's killing us. Go ahead,
Is this an example like how it's going to play out before Judgment Day?
This is much like how it's going to play out in Judgment Day. This is much like because if you think about every other time we were brought out of a situation, the Lord intervened heavily. You know what I'm saying, with different men, right? But this time it's going to be the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, right? Read on. Well, go ahead, out.
It's like, so I got a scripture of, if I could.
Let's get it. Bring it out.
This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 16 and verse 7. It reads, when a man's ways please the Lord, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him.
Man, give him a hand. That's an excellent precept. And that's what happened. Because Mordecai's and Esther's ways pleased God.
That's right.
And that's the reason why they were able to defeat Haman, who wanted them dead. You understand? Let's see, it's 8:47. I think what we're going to do is we'll stop it right here and continue on with the rest of the scriptures tomorrow. Make sure you come to class tomorrow. That way, whoever's teaching class tomorrow will go ahead and finish up with this chapter. You understand? And that's that, man. Any questions or whatever you have, make sure you bring them tomorrow to get your questions broken down. And that's that. I'm gonna pass it over to the next ranking man. Who I got, or the next officer? I'll pass it over to you, Kazak. Oh, you good? Okay, Most High Christ. I'm gonna pass it over to Priest and Officer Kazak. Shapar.
Give it up for Priest and Officer Natazar, teaching us about Haman and Purim Day. Today, we understand Purim. We're going to read some security announcements. We at I.S.U.P.K start off 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for the new brother, sister. When a new brother or sister come to the school, they're off limits for 6 months. They ought to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to the brother or sister. There's another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After 6 months period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment. Numbers 18:21, Malachi 3:8-10 means 10th in the Hebrew. Ma'asharah means up to 10th. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you. Give to the Treasury Department or teacher. The priest fund, free will offering for the priest, not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like. Upholding convocations that we have. We just finished Purim, so our next holy convocation will be the Passover, the 14th day of the 5th month, Friday, April 15, 2022, Exodus 12, 1-51, Leviticus 23, 4 and 5. 1 Corinthians 5, 7 and 8, and 2 Corinthians 30 and 17. The Passover will be at Raleigh, North Carolina. Make sure you guys make provisions to make the Most High's commanded all blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians to show up at the Passover. It's your duty, right? In Raleigh, North Carolina. If you want some detail, just get with one of these officers around here or a camp leader, right? So let's make sure. Remind Akim and Akwaf to check the bulletin board in the hallway. If anyone wants to be a trooper in the school, to start wearing all black, boots, shirt, pants, headband, and scarf. Right? We're going to salute out our brothers. Mad Shabbat. Mad. Barak. How about Shimmy Abishai Barak? No. Faces turn and face the sisters. Mad Shabbat. Mad. Barak. Yahweh Shema Al Shimmy Abishai. With that we say, Yasamatah, dismiss.